Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And I want to ask you, why do we care what happened in the past? Because the past is the past, right? We have enough stuff going on in our current day. So why should we be looking backwards? Well, the answer to that is because the stories and the things that have happened in the past inform us about likely decisions. It's almost like going to the end of the book and reading that first before you go through page by page. So we have links and connections to our past. And a big part of that is cultural. So what kind of music, how was the dance happening? And what was it like to be a kid? So we're going to start with that right now. I'm going to share my screen with you. And we're going to take a look at what it was like to be a kid in the time of Bach. So Bach was a German composer who was around at the same time as our French playlist that you may have seen on our YouTube. And what's important about it is that the music was related across the countries. So it was all inspired by dances that were happening socially. And before we get to the dance though, I'm jumping ahead. Let's talk about what it was like to be a kid in 1650. Those are some grim statistics there. 25% of kids didn't even get to grow up. 40% didn't become adults. And most children, most children didn't even get to go to school because working and helping their parents was the most important thing to do. And that's one of the reasons that today an education is so valuable, because we recognize that as something that's going to help us get out of just working and working and working. And teachers and parents were very strict. It wasn't just, hey, no Xbox time. It was, if you don't get your work done, we might not make it. So there were farms and chores and animals and laundry, and everything just took so much longer and was a lot more difficult. So what do you think a typical day looked like for a kid your age in the 16 and 1700s? You think you got to sleep in? Caroline, come in and tell us. What do you think real quick?
I think that what it was is you'd have to wake up almost before the sunrise, and then you'd only get to go to sleep like after the sunset.
Boy, I think she's really right. So it was a day full of work, but there was always time to play. We'll get to that next. And the children really didn't get a chance to choose what they wanted to do. Now you hear you can do whatever you want to do. You can be whatever you want to be. But back in those days, there were classes. So if you see over on the right-hand side of the screen, you see all of the different classes. So from the top, you would have been a worker. Tradesman means you had skills, and it goes all the way up to being a royal member of the family who lived at court. And those classes were really important to the social structure. We don't really have those now so much, but at the end, we'll talk about how that does correlate to our modern day society. So you couldn't work all day long. Here are some of the games that we played in the 1700s. So jump rope, London Bridge, hopscotch, you guys probably know what all of those things are. But horseshoes and huzzlecap? And if you played with horseshoes, you weren't playing with the plastic kind that you pick up at Target. You were throwing real horseshoes. Any of you out there have brothers and sisters? Can you imagine what would happen if you got really frustrated and you threw a real horseshoe at one of your brothers or sisters instead of one of those plastic ones? I don't think it would end very well. So,
sorry, I have a question.
Yes. Is it the huzzlecap?
No, because you said that now you buy the horse shoes at Target.
Yes, the horseshoes, you can buy a plastic game of them and you just toss them and they weigh nothing. But the horseshoes that they were playing with then were the actual shoes of the horse that were made of iron and had nails driven through them. So if you threw one of those things, it was a huge chunk of metal and it was a fun game. But if you missed, you could seriously injure someone or knock them out.
Yes, I get it. But what's a Target? Like you said that now you can buy the horse.
Yes, so Target being a store.
Okay.
We have international audiences. You know.
Hello, my name is Camila and this is Micheline and we are from Poland.
I love that you're joining us from Poland today. Thank you so much.
She's my sister and my niece. So.
Yes, exactly.
So how would would you feel though if your mom said, hey, your chores are all done, it's time to go outside, and the first thing you said was, I know, let's have a spelling contest? Who of you out there runs outside to have a spelling contest for fun? No one, right? So a lot of these games, you can find directions on how to play them in the supplementary materials that I mentioned. So some of those are similar, right? You can see yourself playing blind man's bluff or jump rope or things like that. So the playing part was very similar. Let's talk about the clothing part. So if you were alive in that time, who wore it best? Let's see. If you were a toddler boy, you got to wear dresses because everybody wore a dress until they got older. And it was really in fashion for children to be miniature adults. So you were wearing heels and tights and wigs and things just like your parents. And this, of course, was if you were a member of the higher classes. But you weren't wearing children's clothes or play clothes. You were dressed just like your parents. Now, a corset is a fantastic invention that you can see around the lady's waist that squishes it in really tight and was made of whalebone. Now, the purpose for that was to give them a very specific shape and silhouette. Just like today, certain body types are in fashion. That was the fashion back then. And honey, have you seen my hair? You had to keep wigs and powdered things on top because guess what? You were not taking a shower very often. So a way to look dressed up and put together was to put your real hair underneath a wig, and then that way you always looked nice. I don't know about you guys, but I think I could use one of those for all of these days Zooming, right? Just put my hair on like a ball cap and call it a day. Yeah. So one of my favorite shows in the last 10 years was So You Think You Can Dance. And I would love if you would share in the comments with me, what roles do you think that dance plays in society? Is it important to you now? Do you find yourself dancing? You can either share with audio or you can share in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And does dance look the same? So if I asked you to bust out your best dance move, what would that look like now? Anybody want to show me? Alana, what would you do if you were dancing?
Oh, man. I mean, I usually resort to something, one of these.
Like some hand motions.
That's my go-to dance.
Yeah. Good. 1970s, you know, you got the disco.
Yeah, it's mostly just learned from Soul Train, you know.
Yeah. Caroline, can you show us a Fortnite dance?
I know one.
Okay.
I only know floss, but if you want that,
Let's see it. Okay, how many of you
Oh,
know
that-
floss?
That's the one.
Mom, you're
Right.
doing it too.
Everybody knows how to floss. So if you imagine, we're talking about dance and flossing and Fortnite dances, those are the kinds of things that join us together, because I remember when I was teaching that every kid in my class knew how to Fortnite dance. So the reason that that's important is because dance and experiences like that bring us together. When we all know how something goes, we feel like part of the team or part of a group. And dance was important back then too for the same reasons. They weren't watching TV. They could only go to places to experience things because they weren't carrying around their iPods. And so dance was the custom of the time. What did it look like though? And this is where you're gonna get off your feet. We're going to learn the minuet, okay?
Right.
So the minuet, let me talk a little bit about the minuet. The minuet was a dance that was more about walking and about being close to your partner. In fact, it was one of the few dances in which kissing was encouraged. The rest of the dances had jumps and hops and more fancy footwork, but this was really about showing off. The minuet was often the first dance that people did at court, and we're gonna look at some videos. But when we do, I'd like you to notice these things. Baroque dance was the foundation for what becomes modern ballet. So if you're thinking about modern ballet, you might know that you put your heels together and turn your feet out. And you might know about hand positions, where your hands move in different positions to match your feet. So all of that began in this time period because of King Louis XIV, who loved ballet and dance and started putting it in all of his operas. So let's watch this video together. This is a pasakai, which is a kind of a form from Luli, who is a composer. And I'd like you to just watch their feet and their arms. So you may have noticed a lot of what I wrote on the side over there. Lots of bending and rising, little tiny jumps, small extensions, but not very fancy. There's moving apart and moving together. Okay, so now it's your turn.
Oh.
A minuet is 6 counts. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that wasn't so hard, was it? Right. All right, I'm going to switch my screen share now to a video that I filmed this morning of me doing some basic minuet steps, and then we're going to try it together. All right. And that's the plan anyway, is to share that with you. Here we go. I found it. Just a second. There we go. All right. Okay, want to try it with me there? Everybody standing up? Or try
Yes, of course, I will try.
on your toes. You're going to be up on your toes because it's about the rise and fall. Step, heels, step, 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 heels. And you can do that in place if you would like to do that before you try moving around. So the whole point is that you got to get up on your heels and then bend your knees. So let's do that together. You're going to go up on your heel, up on your toes rather, and then bend your knees down. Now, I'm going to show you the how not to as soon as we're done, but make sure that you keep your backside tucked in under you and you're standing up nice and straight, because otherwise you'll look like a duck as you're minuetting, okay? And you have this tight corset on and about 20 pounds of clothing and heels and things, so you cannot step very far. You're going to take small steps and bend your knees, and we're going to go together. Ready? 4, 5, 6. Step, heel, step, 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 heel. Good. How many of you fell over while you did that? If you fell over, it's because you were taking, your steps were too big. So here we go again. We're going to go step together, step, step, step together. Okay? I'm going to share another video with you of actual minuet dancing, and I want you to try and do the minuet while the dancers are dancing. Okay. Give me 1 second to get that for you. We're going to pick these 3 ladies who are going to dance for you. And the most important thing here is for you to keep time. Try and keep that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 going in your head the whole time that we dance. And I'll help you by counting along. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Step down, step, step, step down. right. How are you doing there? Alana, you look great. People with no video, shoot me a text and let me know how you're doing. How was it? Was it hard?
It is one, you join, one step and you join, and 3 steps, 1, join, 1, 2, 3, join.
That is correct, yes. That's hilarious. We have, how did the cat do?
She was getting in the way.
I'm going to show you one more video of what it looks like when a big group is dancing, and then you're going to use your ears with me, and we're going to be musical detectives. So now that you're practically an expert in Baroque dance, I'm going to have you watch the dancers, and what I want you to be looking for is how do they use their arms, how much do they move, and listen to the music, okay? Because you're going to be detectives next up. So one last video for you to see of a big group dancing. All right, I'm sorry that the video quality isn't so good on this. For great dance quality, oh, we'll watch the Ars Lyrica one. Let's do that. So here's a minuet danced by the New York Baroque Dance Company, Catherine Tarosi, with Ars Lyrica playing. See if you can count to 6 as they play. My legs are already tired. All right, see how their steps are small? And the rise and the fall. Now they don't stick exactly to our basic minuet step. This is a more complex dance step that has been choreographed for them because this is actual ballet as opposed to social dance. But both parts were very much a part of the Baroque time, which is again 1700s. All right, are you ready to be musical detectives? All right, here is your challenge. I've put together a short playlist on Spotify. We're going to listen together. So if you have a piece of paper, you can choose which one of these 4 is the proper tempo for dancing the minuet steps that you've learned, okay? So we'll try together, and I want you to keep track. Write down whether you think it's too fast, too slow, just right, and a reason why. And if you're not writing it down, you can share it with your parent or with your sister or friend or daughter or whoever is sharing the screen with you right now. All right, here we go. Spotify playlist. Got your detective sleuthing ears on. What do you think we're listening for? Any ideas? What would make it hard to dance those 6 steps? You can text it to me or tell it to me.
It's too fast.
So Alana, what would happen if the music was too fast?
Dancer would fall over and they would be ashamed. And well, I know that especially in Louis XIV's court, dance was a status symbol. So if you if you messed up your dance, you could be banished from court. There's one account of, I forget what the guy's name is, but he got banished to somewhere in the country, God forbid, like to the countryside because he messed up his dance at court. So
That's a lot of pressure. And
yeah,
when they danced from status. So they began with the highest level of status and then went down as there were more and more people on the floor. So if you were a very important person, it was also very important that you got the steps right. All right, so keep in mind what Alana just shared with us. If it's too fast, the dancer might fall over, but there's a converse to that as well. So I'm going to share with you now our playlist and keep track of which ones you think are right. The best way to keep track of that actually is going to be to try dancing as we are talking here. So give it a go. I'll play long enough for you to have a shot at it, and we'll come back at the end of 4 and you can tell me which one you think was the right choice. All right. Option number 1. All right, make your notes for option number 1. I chose this minuet as our sample today because I figured if any of you have had piano lessons, you've probably had to learn to play this piece. And sometimes your teacher says, play it faster. And sometimes your teacher says, play it slower. And you don't know why. So now if you practice this piece and your teacher says, I think it should be faster, you can say, actually, no, miss. Here are the steps that go with it. All right, number 2. Oops. Number 2. All right, what do you think of option 2? Too fast?
Too fast. Just fast. For my minuet, too fast.
And don't forget, you would have on heels as well, right?
Yes, too fast for my minuet.
Okay.
Much more better the first version.
3 more to go. What's wrong with this one? A little bit too what?
A little too free.
A little bumpy, not to mention.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more.
I can't even do that.
Too complicated.
The core training.
Too many notes, too picture square. Picturesque.
I figured if you weren't quite sure, that one would be a definite for sure. 2 what?
Too slow.
Too slow, too free. All right, last one.
No way. No way. Sit down for that.
All right, share with me by video or by comment about which one you thought was your favorite. Which one is the best minuet tempo? Sure, Camilla?
For me, it was the first one, definitely.
Why?
Because it was nice, very clear differences between the notes, so I can easily make the steps, and it was easy to dancing. Just I don't know the steps, but I didn't make a lot of mistakes, I think.
Ah, good.
And the other version, it was always difficult to dance for me.
Excellent. Alana?
I'm a little torn between 1 and 2. 2 wasn't too bad for me, but that's also because I'm here in my, like basically my jammies and just kind of hanging out. But I can imagine if I had the big skirt and the corset and not being able to breathe and the baby steps, I think 1 could also work. Because I also know that before they didn't, in the video, the dancer had a shorter dress where you could actually see her feet, but that wasn't always the case.
Yes.
Just showing your ankles was like, so they also had to worry about not tripping over their dresses. So maybe in that case, one was the
preferred tempo.
Was the preferred tempo.
Well,
And to show the ankles nicely. Yes, and to show this, it's nicely, not without mistakes.
Yes.
Not to make this like this. It was
Yeah.
make it right movements.
yes, and in the bloopers reel that I shot, that is also on YouTube, which I will make unprivate so you can watch, that if you aren't perfectly straight like you would be in classical ballet, then your bottom sticks out and it does not look graceful at all. You look sort of like a Neanderthal hobbling along. So the social dances that we have now, like Fortnite and flossing, like we can stand here. I had to practice the flossing, I have to admit, it's pretty challenging. But those are the things that bring everybody together. So if everybody agreed on this tempo and these steps and the social customs that went with it, they knew what to expect when they went to a party. Have you ever gone to a party and you were nervous because you were like, oh my gosh, you know, what's going to happen? Are my friends going to be there? How is it going to go? I'm an adult and it still happens to me like that. So when you went to these events, you knew, if you knew the dance steps and you had practiced and you had yourself in order, there was a protocol or a plan for what was going to happen. So sort of like if you go to your friend's house for a sleepover, you know, you might do some dancing and play some Fortnite and have some snacks. You know how it goes. So the way that dance fits into culture is that it's part of our social custom. It's part of how we relate to each other. And of course it evolves and changes throughout time. But it's very interesting to look back at it in our case as musicians too, especially because it's like a key or a guidebook to how to look at this music. We don't get a lot of markings in music that was written hundreds and hundreds of years ago because it was just written out by the composer. No metronome marks, not a lot of other interpretive things. So knowing the dance steps helps us to choose the right speed or tempo, just like you experienced in your dancing of the piece. So I'm thrilled that you all joined me today for this. I hope you'll look for more of our educational opportunities. All of our programming is listed on our website under the virtual tab. And again, you can find the materials and links for this on that page as well. So have a great day. Try out your Minuet as you're walking through your living room or down the street when you're having a little social distancing outside time. And I'll look forward to seeing you again at Ars Lyrica's Musical Moments. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.